And I rock it everywhere. Sawubona to you this morning. I'm excited about the conversation. I love being black. I said I love being black. We are grateful that you have stopped right here at KABF 88.3 FM, where we are the voice of the people. To join us for Community Voices, we are here every Tuesday morning from 9 to 10 a.m. to talk about all things that center Black people but have an effect on everybody. And we are grateful for your presence in this space. We realize that you could be listening to anything else, but for you to be here, that means a lot to us. And so we want you to know how important your voice is. So the phone lines are open at 501-433-0088. Phone lines are open at 501-433-0088. I see your hotel. Hotel said I love being black also. Yes. And so you can join us by calling in, or you can join us on Facebook. You can even join us on YouTube. It's what's my YouTube channel name? Just Talk with Dr. Denise. I had to think about that one for a minute. Just Talk with Dr. Denise. And so we are coming to you via Facebook through StreamYard, and you can go on YouTube, or you can call us on the phone, 501-433-0088. We are here to listen to you. I do have a couple of announcements that I want to make, but before I do that, let me make sure that I am not remiss in introducing you to some and presenting to others.
Don't go there.
Tony. Oh, good morning, Tony.
Good morning, Denise. Good morning, everyone. Just want to say thank you for tuning in this morning. Hope you had a great day of rest yesterday. Most people got a 3-day weekend, so I hope you took the time to just relax and rest like I did. Just want to remind you that this is our last week of pledge drive. So you can give three different ways. You can call 501-372-6119, and you can give that way. You will talk to someone in our office. You can also go online to www.kabf.org, and you can click the donate button. And while you're there, become a sustaining monthly member of KBF. Your monthly contribution will help go to the sustainability of KBF, which has been going strong for over 38 years. You can also call one of your favorite shows, one of your favorite hosts, and you can give over the phone that way. And that number is 501-433-0088. You can also send us a check money order 2101 South Main Street here in Little Rock, Arkansas, 72206. And if you're out and about and you just want to stop by, like so many people do, and give your donations in person, you can come to that same address, 2101 South Main Street here in Little Rock. And, just by stopping by, we'll make sure that you won't leave empty-handed. We'll make sure we get something, give you something to show our appreciation for you coming. Also, if you have a business, you're an entrepreneur, you just have some thoughts that you want to get out, like Dr. Phil, real good. He takes advantage of our buy what. You get 20 60-second spots for $150, and he just uses it to put out information about health, just different things like that. And so, if you want to, you can do that. It's one of our it's one of our number one premium that we do during Pledge Drive. And so please take advantage of it. If you need more information about that, you just give me a call at 501-247-3869. And also just want to give you a quick update for our listeners. Our longtime program director, John Kane, the legendary John Kane, got admitted into Baptist Health Medical Center on Friday with some health issues. He has been out of the office for about a month now. And so just want you to know that, your thoughts and your prayers will go out to John. And we ask, we're praying for a speedy recovery, and that he will be okay, and that he's still in the hospital as of today. And so hopefully he can get well and he can get released and back to his home.
So let's just take a moment as we think about John and just be still as we remember the years of service that he has offered to us, the years of service that will now have to shift. We don't know if he'll be able to come back, but if he does, then definitely what his work looked like will no longer look the same. So we'll just take a moment for John. Thank you for that. We've got a couple of announcements that I would like to make. One of the announcements has to do with Domino's in the Park. I don't think you're on. Is your? We can hear the feedback. So either Domino's in the Park started on Friday. So we absolutely want to make sure that you know that Domino's in the Park is up and running on Fridays. And we started at 4:00. I don't think we're going to start at 4:00. We're going to start at 5:00 on this Saturday. So those of you who've been looking for Domino's in the Park, you've been asking about Domino's in the Park, we are back up and running. I did not think anybody was going to show up on this past Friday because it was kind of like, it felt like a last minute announcement to me. But there were people who showed. We had Amy in the house, woo woo, Sean in the house, woo woo, Leonard in the house, woo woo. So thank you all for showing up. We do believe that Domino's in the Park is about more than playing dominoes. There are conversations that happen at that table that are life-changing, that are transformational, that are educational, that are informative, that just bind us together as neighbors, as friends, as listeners, as members of KAB, the KABF 88.3 family. So we are excited about Domino's in the Park. So we will be there on this Friday at 5:00 at Petaway Park right here on 21st Street. Can you, I don't know what it is, maybe it's too close to mine. I'm not really sure. We're trying to figure out this technology in this room, trying to make sure those of us who are hard of hearing, we are also sensitive to sound. So for people who are what we call hearing folks, you all can deal with so much more sound than we can, and that becomes a vital part of my existence, thinking about just not being able to function. Can you just I just can't function, y'all. I apologize. I don't apologize for having a hearing deficiency, but just for the inconvenience that this might be causing some of you who are listening to us. I also want to announce that Black Love Event 3 is going to be happening on July 8th. We have the date finally. It's going to happen at 7:00 at the same gallery. It's the New Deal Gallery on 2003 South Louisiana Street, right here in Little Rock, in the state of Arkansas, 72206. We will be talking about Black love. I am not going to depend on the panelists anymore to define Black love for us. We will actually start with the definition of Black love, and we will be talking this time primarily from the voices of both Black men and Black women and Black people who are gender nonconforming, gender non-binary. So we invite you to that space. It's coming up on July 8th. I'm super excited that is going to happen. The last announcement that I want to make has to do with my mama. Y'all been asking about my mama. Y'all always ask about my mama. When I tell her y'all ask about her, I can hear her smiling through the phone because it makes her heart so warm and glad to know that you all are thinking about her. But she will be here Saturday. My brother is flying her in on Saturday. She'll be with me for the next few months. Super excited. So thank you all for your continued thoughts, your continued inquiries, your continued presence in my mama's life. I really appreciate that. And I'm excited to see what this adventure unfolds, because it's an adventure with her every day. And so I'm excited to see what's going to happen. But she will be here on Saturday. So I just wanted to make sure that all of you are aware of that. Now, Lo has a comment on here, and he says that my prayers for the 11-year-old that was shot in Chicago asking for help. I have centered today Darian Murray. He's who we're going to talk about. He's why I chose the song I Love Being Black that was written by the Black Youth Project. I absolutely wanted to center youth in this space this morning. My understanding is that Darian was shot. He's an 11-year-old, but he was shot in Mississippi. And so, Lo, is this a different 11-year-old that was shot in Chicago asking for help? Or do we just have the cities mixed up? Because this young man that I want to center today was shot in Indianola, Mississippi. And I really want us to lift up all youth right now. And so if this is a different person, absolutely want to include him in the conversation. If it's the same person, then this is just serendipitous for you to be talking about him and for me to be centering Darian at the same time. So thank you for that comment. I want to bring us in with the Equal Justice Initiative tidbit for this morning on this day, May 30th in 1943. White mobs attack Latino youth in Los Angeles, Zoot Suit riots. Zoot Suit is in quotation marks. That's what the riots, and I don't know why they call them riots. It wasn't a riot. The youth were attacked by white folks. That's what happened. So I don't want to call it a riot. But that's what happened on May 30th, 1943 in Los Angeles, California. White soldiers targeted Latino youth in a series of violent attacks that became known as the Zoot Suit riots. On May 30th, a group of white soldiers got into a scuffle with some Latino youth. That small conflict sparked a violent and widespread riot. White sailors and soldiers spread throughout Los Angeles, attacking any Latino youth wearing zoot suits, beating them with belt buckles and ropes and stripping them of their clothes. Law enforcement did not intervene in support of the Latino victims and instead charged them with vagrancy, while Los Angeles newspapers encouraged the violence and portrayed Latino youth as deserving of brutal treatment. Okay, so here's Lo responding to me. Cities mixed, asking assistance for a domestic situation with his mom. Yes, we're talking about the same person. His name is Darian Murray. So we're going to center Darian in just a moment. But I want to make sure that we're always tying everything together. And so we're the song that we started the program with. I love being Black. It's the skin that I'm in. I love my hair and I'm gonna rock it so just the essence of being Black. I want to make sure that I am celebrating that I am embracing that I am internalizing what it means to honor Blackness, and I'm living in that way even as a youth, because we got to do it when we're young, because it's difficult to unlearn when we are adults. So we want to make sure that we are centering our youth in an understanding of who they are and what it means to be Black, not just what it means to try to skate and skirt around the system of white inhumanity, but what it means to own your Blackness and be confident in it and to be bold in it. And so when we look at this Equal Justice Initiative tidbit, where youth, they weren't Black, but they were of color, because people of color are treated like step cousins, like stepchildren of Black folks. And so when you have the more melanin you have in your skin, the more you are targeted by the system of white inhumanity. So here we have these Latino youth who are targeted by soldiers. And I think that's so fitting, because we just talked about Tony said he wanted, you had a 3-day weekend. We had a 3-day weekend because it was Memorial Day. And so we want to honor and we want to glorify the members of the military who died. And so we don't want to dismiss anybody's death ever. And we want to talk about how the military plays itself out in the day-to-day lives of folks. And so because these are soldiers who decided that they were going to beat these members of the youth who are Latino, this is what happened on May 30th. And so I want to center the youth today as we have this conversation. And I'm centering it in the life of Darian Murray, who is 11 years old and who was shot in the chest because he called to ask for help in the city of Indianola in the state of Mississippi. So I just want to pause and see if you have any comments right now, Tony, so that you won't feel left out.
It's so ironic when you talk about the military going back to the ex-Marine who choked and killed the homeless man in
Jordan Neely.
Jordan Neely in New York. So you know, that's why when I just talk about 3-day weekend, I just say Memorial Day, because when you start to really think about it, we want to honor and we want to give credence to these soldiers who died. But what about the soldiers who served in the military that were Black, who came back and they were hung in their uniforms? They were mistreated in their uniforms, and they were soldiers. And so I think there is this hypocrisy when it comes to how people view the military, and the honor they want to give to it. But the military has allowed its soldiers or its veterans to perpetrate violence against other people. And how do you celebrate that? And so it's interesting. And as we talk about, as we shift into Adarian Ford.
Murray.
My apology. I apologize, Adarian Murray. And as I was reading about that, it was just it didn't make any sense to me that you're calling for help, and then you end up being shot. So I'm looking forward to the conversation about that.
See if you can log in again. So Adarian Murray is 11 years old, and his mother was having an issue with the father of one of her other children. And it's about 4:00 in the morning, and she says, okay, the father is there. He is irate. He is absolutely livid. She's concerned about her own safety. And in being concerned about her own safety, she kind of slides the phone to Adarian. And she says to Adarian, call the cops. And so Adarian calls 911 because he is concerned about his mother and because he's also following her instructions, and asks and summons the police to their home. And the police come to their home, and the police come with guns drawn. So whatever was said on the 911 call, we don't know yet what was said on the 911 call, but whatever was said made the police officer decide that he needed to come with his gun drawn. So he came with his gun drawn, and he orders everyone out of the house. So the instructions from the police are, everybody in the house, you need to get out. So Adarian, hearing the instructions from the police officer, comes around the corner in his house in order to be in compliance. So he's complying with the orders from the police officer. And as soon as he comes around the corner, the police officer shoots him in the chest. And Adarian has now been released from the hospital, but he was airlifted to the hospital in Jackson because he had a collapsed lung. He had fractured ribs. He had a lacerated liver. They had to give him a chest tube and place him on a ventilator as a result of this shot to the chest. And so this police officer shot to kill. And so he shot to kill this 11-year-old who came around the corner because he told him to come around the corner. And now Ladarian is recovering from his wounds as a result of. One of the things that really bothered me, and I'm sure, Tony, you'll have a response to this, and I want to hear it. I really do. But one of the things that bothered me about this story that I was reading about Adarian, this 11-year-old, it says that after he was shot, his mother, Michaela, his mother, she put her hand on his chest to try to apply pressure because he was bleeding. And it says that as she was doing that, Adarian was singing gospel songs and praying while he was bleeding out. So he's singing gospel songs and praying while he is bleeding out. And that statement just has stuck with me since reading this story. And I know most people are waiting for me to say that the person who shot Darian was this white man who shot this little black boy, but that's not the case. The person who shot Darian, his name is Gary Capers, and he's a black man who was named like Cop of the Year. Well, I don't think they would call it Cop of the Year. Maybe they call it Police Officer of the Year, Law Enforcement Officer of the Year. But he was just named that on last year, and now here he is, the one who has shot this young black youth in the chest and caused him to have to be airlifted to the hospital in Jackson, which is about 100 miles away. And this is really like heavy on me for a whole bunch of reasons. But one, I'm from Mississippi, right? So as soon as you say Jackson, you had to go to the hospital in Jackson. I know that because Indianola is not very far from Yazoo City, which is where I got my first teaching gig. And so I know the area very well, growing up in Mississippi, working in Yazoo City. And then when I became a pastor for the first time, it was in Greenville. And so I had to travel from Jackson to Greenville going through Indianola. I just did that on the other Saturday. Like last Saturday, I went to celebrate the life of my friend Arve, and I had to take that same route. I went through Greenville to Jackson, which took me through Indianola, and I came back the same way. So I was like, I was just there where this young man was shot in the chest because the cop told him to come out, and then this cop shot him and almost killed him. And so when we have these conversations, a lot of times it gets rooted in race. A lot of times we talk about it, and because it gets rooted in race, the conversation dissolves because there are so many people who don't want to talk about racism. They don't want to talk about the fact that people are racist among us. They don't want to talk about any of that. And so the conversation dissolves. But here is an opportunity for us to talk about the system of police brutality, which infects every member of the law enforcement team, regardless of your race. And so I'm glad that we are able to have this conversation beyond race so that so many people will not shut down and be able to talk it through. And so here's what Lo says: skin color has little to do with indoctrination. Absolutely. So when you are a law enforcement officer, there is a system that you enter into, that you pledge your fidelity and your loyalty to. And that system brutalizes, in particular, Black folks. But even when we were listening to the EJI tidbit, it's not just Black folks. It's also, that isn't the EJI tidbit isn't about law enforcement brutalizing the Latino youth, but it's also about law enforcement refusing to intervene in the brutalization of youth of color. And in this case, the young man, the officer, Gary Capers, is on paid administrative leave. And that's part of this system of police brutality that protects its own.
Yeah, and you're so true. And one thing that you mentioned that a lot of people don't understand is that there's this idea that if we have more Black police officers, when you look at police forces around the country, the one thing they always talk about, the leaders of these police departments talk about, we need to get more diversity, we need to get more Black people, however they want to frame it. But the problem is that once you become a police officer, the only color that matters is blue, and you are taught, and it's interesting, you're coming to a domestic violence situation, and you have your guns, you have your gun drawn, which also lends to that, when police, most of the time police officers think that it's a situation where Black people are involved, they react differently. They show up differently. They show up anticipating a confrontation. They show up prepared for a confrontation. They show up with their guns, weapons drawn, because they believe, because we are dealing with Black people, that there's going to be some type of confrontation, where most of the time when they show up to white spaces for domestic violence, they're going to have they're not going to have their guns drawn. They're going to come in. They're going to talk to, try to get, why don't you step outside, sir or ma'am? Can we just, go over here in the corner of the room and let's talk about this? It's going to be a totally different scenario. And it goes back to the indoctrination of how police officers are trained to treat Black people differently, and people of color differently how they treat white people.
And all of that is rooted in the system of racism, and it can be traced back to the system of enslavement. And so when we think about law enforcement officers today, they are a direct line from the slave patrols when we were humans that were being enslaved by white folks. And that so this policing that we have, that we are still dealing with, that we are looking at, that we are experiencing, that we are being impacted by every single day, continues to root Black folks in the ideology, in the lie, in the myth, in the racist notion that Black people always need to be controlled, Black people always need to be contained, Black people are always angry, Black people always need help that they cannot offer themselves. Like all of this stuff that we lied on Black people about and indoctrinated the rest of the world about, we are still living it every single day. And so one of the reasons why you have this young, he's 11 years old. He's 11 years old. He comes out of around the corner and he is shot immediately. I think a person could argue that perhaps the cop assumed that this was the person coming around the corner was going to be the Black man who was causing the domestic violence situation. Because remember, the cop was called because there was domestic violence or the presumption of domestic violence here in the home. The mother was afraid. She wanted some help. She asked her son to call the cops. The cops show up. He asked the people to come out of the home. So I think one could assume that he's expecting the person, the baby's father, who's causing the situation, to be one of the ones who's coming out of the room. Hence, my gun is drawn. I'm sitting on ready because I don't know what's about to happen because of all of what you just said, Tony. I'm scared. Just to show up at the Black people house, I'm already scared. And so he shoots. But I think this is a great opportunity for us to talk about a bias that many of us hold, which is called adultification. And it's a bias that says when I see young Black children, I automatically assume that they are older than they really are. So this young man is 11 years old. I would never mistake an 11-year-old for a 22-year-old. I'm never going to make that mistake. But it is possible for some people to make the mistake because we have been conditioned to believe that Black children are older than they really are. When we were being enslaved, children as young as 5 years old were being sexualized. At 5 years old, you had young girls and boys being sexualized because this idea that this particular body can withstand more, this particular body wants or desires more, this particular body, as young as it is, we are going to make it older. We're going to treat it older. We're going to make it look older. We're going to pretend that it acts older so that we can justify our behavior towards it. And so I can already see how this narrative is going to play out where this 11-year-old boy, and that's what he is they're going to say, oh, I thought he was older than that. Well, why would you think that? It's because of the bias that we hold, that many of us hold, that we don't talk about much at all.
And I think something else that's going to be what I'm waiting on, and it's amazing that when these incidents happen, one of the first things they won't do is release any type of body cam footage. They won't release any type of video. They hold on to it. And to me, they hold on to it so they can go through every frame, every inch of it to come up with their justifications, to come up with why, from their perspective, why it happens. Because as I was reading about it, and you're right, the police officer, everybody come out with your hands up. And when I was reading about it, it said that he had his hands up. So if his hands were up, why was he shot? And also, I want to hear the 911 call. Did it mention that the father had a weapon? Did he, was it that something was said? Because, I can understand if doing a 911 call that it was said, hey, he has a weapon, he's threatening us, there's a gun or something. So I can see a police officer showing up, on ready. But if that's not there, and then why would you show up? Why would you show up with with your weapon drawn?
So Lo is on here. One of the comments that he makes is that if he was that scared, talking about the policeman, then he does not need to be in law enforcement. And I think I've made this argument more than once. I would not dare to say that there are not situations where law enforcement officers, where police officers don't need to be scared. Like, I would never say that. I would never say that their lives are not threatened. As a matter of fact, I dated a guy who was a police officer, and to this day, his entire life has changed because he was shot in the head during an off-duty call. He heard the police scanner go off, and he happened to be in the area, and he decided to respond to the call and did not think that the call was threatening at all. And he ended up getting shot in the head, and now he is not the same. He will never be the same because of the damage that he suffered as a result of that shot to his head. So I'm never going to say that being a police officer is not dangerous at times. I'm not going to say that at all. And I'm going to echo, though, what Lo says when you say if you are that scared, if you're so scared to do your job that you are paralyzed in every moment, then that is a problem. That's just like me being a school teacher, and you say, well, students might misbehave. What are you going to do? Every time a student misbehaves, I got to call the police. I have to call the principal. Every time somebody gets out of line, I'm sitting on ready to do something, to discipline them in some way. No, like there's so many tactics that you can use. There are so many strategies that are at the ready for you. There's so many tools in your toolbox, regardless of your profession. As a teacher, I had tools. As an organizer, I have tools. As a facilitator, I have tools. So I would assume that as a law enforcement officer, you have tools. And I know that law enforcement officers know how to de-escalate situations because we see them do it with white people all the time. All the time, we see white people that have weapons. We see white people who are belligerent. We see white people who are non-compliant. We see white people who are insubordinate, who are disrespectful. We see that all the time, and yet they are still alive when many of us die. So this cannot be a situation where you don't know what to do. It goes back to the fact that we have to center the conversation in you've been taught a different way of doing when it comes to Black people. And of course, they say that the reason the body cam footage has not been released is because it's an ongoing investigation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they cannot show it because it's an ongoing investigation. And of course, the police officer, in this case, Gary Capers, of course, he is paid administrative leave because that's what they do. But here's what's interesting to me. I wanted to use this opportunity to blast the police union, and I was thinking about how the police union is who shows up in these cases to rally for the officer who has been accused, and they want to make sure they stand by, and they have this line of blue and this protection that I was ready to blast the union. But according to the news reports, it's the board of aldermen in Indianola, the city, who decided to place this police officer on paid administrative leave. So this wasn't the union coming to say, oh, this is what we think we should do. This was the city saying that. And so I said, why would the city say that they want to place this officer on paid administrative leave? And I think it gives us room to talk about how, when we talk about systemic issues, that this is the way the system is designed to include all of these different parts to keep it running. And so if the city has said, look, We're not paying you until we find out what's going on. We're going to dismiss you. You need to go home until we figure this out. If the city had made a different decision, I would have been so excited. But the city made the decision that the union expected them to make because they're all working together. And so when we talk about Black youth and we all talk about making sure that we want them to celebrate themselves, it's difficult for Black youth, for Black people in general to do that when you've got a system of systems that are set in place against you. So how do we raise up a generation so that they can see, even in the midst of all that you're going through, you can still say, I love being Black. That's right. How is that possible? And it's difficult for us to get our Black youth to embody the brilliance that they have because they are fighting every single day a system of systems that does not honor who they are.
Yeah, and going back to something Lo said, y'all, the comment he said, if you're that afraid, why are you a police officer? And the one thing, it goes back to white inhumanity and their idea of this Second Amendment. We have to have guns. Guns is that equalizer. I may be afraid, but I got a gun. Not only do I have a gun as a police officer, I have all those systems backing me. I have the police union backing me. And in this case, I got the city of board of aldermen backing me. I got everybody backing me. And before doing this ongoing investigation, before anything is released, he's going to spend hours going over his testimony, his incident report, to where it's going to be, it's just going to roll out. They're going to tell him what type of words to use, what type of phrases to use, and it's going to be, everything is going to be said is to protect the police department, him, and to justify what happened. And so when you, like you said, when you have all these systems working, it's hard for Black youth and Black people to be able to embrace who they are, because you're constantly, like you say, you're constantly fighting against all these things that you're up against.
Yeah, and you're fighting against who they say that you are. So let me say about Adarian, again, who's 11 years old. When you talk about how they are going to make sure that they feed the police officer the words and the narrative to spin it so that he is protected, they are also going to do the same thing with Adarian in the opposite way. So they're going to talk to him in a way that gets him to admit some kind of culpability. Like, maybe you didn't, maybe you came around the corner too fast, maybe you came around like you were charged. They're gonna talk to him in a way that makes him feel like maybe it was something that he did wrong. And then they're gonna spin the story so that they can find something, anything that they could use to justify Caper's behavior in shooting him in the chest. And so Adarian, being 11 years old, his first question was, why did he shoot me? What did I do? Those are his two questions. Why did he shoot me? He asks his mother, why did he shoot me? What did I do? I'm complying with you. You said come out. I'm coming out. And so I feel like I don't even care. This is me. I don't really care what the body camera shows. I don't really care what the narrative is. I want you, Police Officer Capers, to answer that question right there. I don't want to look at the footage. You just tell me out your mouth. Why did you shoot him? What did he do besides comply? What is the answer to that? And sometimes I don't even get into conversations with folks, because the only reason I enter into conversation with people is because I'm interested in how to move through this conversation. I'm interested in how the dialogue can push both of us forward. I'm interested in how this can be fruitful for the both of us. I'm interested in how we can glean what we can glean from this that helps us take our next step together. But I don't think there's anything that this police officer can say to me that would make me say, oh, I can see why you shot him. I don't believe I'm the one that had a conversation with him. Somebody else needs to talk to him, and then I'll read about it and talk about it, but I'm not the one, because I don't see what you could possibly say that would make me understand why you shot this 11-year-old boy in his chest. So Lowe says the reason for the Second Amendment was to keep blacks in line, and guns were the controlling factor. The reason for the Second Amendment was to keep blacks in line, and guns were the controlling factor. Um, I don't know why that made me think about the story, the movie. What's the name of that movie? Harlem Nights. The movie Harlem Nights, there's a scene in it where there's a gun battle, and you've got one person who's shooting this gun. I think it was Arsenio Hall. He's shooting this gun. It's like pow, pow. But the other people have guns where they're like, and there's no way you're going to fight against that, right? So black people have been behind the eight ball in that way, even though we do have guns in black families, in black homes, no doubt about it. But I believe that we're still outnumbered and outgunned as it relates to the way that white people have been stockpiling guns for years and years and years. And so when you have a situation where you say, well, yeah, you can have a gun. Well, if I'm shooting a 9, well, I don't know how many shots I can get off with a 9. I'm not really sure. But if you got a semi-automatic, then who gonna win this fight? Right? And so it's almost like black people have knives and white people have guns. Like, who's gonna win this fight? Because that's what people say. Don't bring a knife to a gunfight. They say stuff like that. And so we have a Darian Murray who, what do you say to him as a young black man? Like, what do you say to him about this situation? How do you help him understand when he asks the question to all of us? Because I feel like when we talk about it takes a village to raise a child, we are all going to be responsible for answering him. How do we answer him to say, why were you shot? When he asks the question, why was I shot? What do we say? Because you were black? Okay, we need to say that because it's true. But then how do we explain that to an 11-year-old? How do we explain to a 5-year-old? How do we explain to a 6-year-old? How do I explain it to my 19-year-old godson? How do we have these conversations? And many of us, because it's so difficult and because it's so painful and because it brings tears to our eyes, we choose not to have the conversation, but we can't afford not to have the conversation. We have to talk about the fact that even though we love being black, even though I want you to love the skin that you are in and the hair that grows out of your head, I gotta tell you that your blackness is a liability to this world. I've got to tell you that. And we've got to have these conversations. And I think that's the problem with many black folks. We want to act like we don't have to have these conversations anymore. Because if I make more money, I can put my child in a different school. We can live in a different neighborhood. We can go to a different kind of church. Whatever it is you tell yourselves that makes you think that I no longer have to have this conversation because I'm middle class now. It's a lie. You still have to have this conversation.
I think that's part of the hypocrisy. Is that we teach our children that, hey, this is America. This is the land of the free, and that you can be whatever you want to be. You can do whatever you want to do. You can be successful. We had that conversation with our black youth. And give them this idea or give them this hope that this is what they can do. But the hypocrisy is, yes, we're telling you this, but underneath, you're still black and you're still going to be treated as black. In situations like this, you can see not only are we going to still treat you as black, we're going to use black people who are part of the system that we have allowed that they're in to kill you too.
Caller, you're live on the air. Thanks for calling.
Oh. Hey, son, is this over? How y'all doing?
Hey, good morning.
Hey, I was listening to the conversation because I looked at the report on the little black brother, young black brother in Indianola, Mississippi, and that wasn't right because he was blind. And you know what? We've always been confined, even since the days of slavery. And we still get shot at, get abused, get misused, and sometimes confused. But you know what? It don't make no sense. Because you know what the fuck I call out again? Denise, I like that intro you brought out today. I love being black. I like the blackness of my skin. I like the texture of my hair. I love being black because I'm going to spread it around because I am black. And I'm proud of being black because that's how it makes to be black. Hey, man, I got to come out there and play dominoes.
Oh, man, you messed up. You messed up. Everything was going good until you said that. You was on the road until you said that. We've been waiting 3 years, not 3 years, but 3 years for you to show up.
Hey, Tony, hey, Denise.
I'm here.
I said I'm gonna be your partner because I'm going against Tony because Tony said he's the best domino player in the world.
Oh, you got to be ready for Tony because he get mad. He get mad at the domino table. Oh, well, you should see him.
I got to show him on it. I'm gonna show him.
Whatever. Don't nobody. Get off our phone. We're not studying you when it comes to that dominoes.
Yeah, you haven't cashed. You know what? You haven't cashed that check in yet. You insufficient.
Okay. Hey, y'all. Hey, but getting on a serious note, I'm just gonna do it just for a few minutes. That is so correct what both of y'all are saying, though. You know, that young boy, that young 11-year-old boy shouldn't have been shot. He complied with them. But you know, even though we comply with the law and we're black and they're white, and then that police officer is on paid administrative leave. Oh, come on now. And then the alderman of the city approved that. It wasn't the police doing it, but the alderman of the city approved that. That ain't right. But it ain't right all the way around, though. Okay, you know what? Just because I'm black don't mean I gotta sit in the back. Hey, y'all. I love y'all. Y'all keep on making it do what it do, okay?
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Louie. I think that one of the here's a comment. Let me get this comment from Cindy. I'll put it up on the screen. Is the talk only about traffic stops? Can't it expand? It's sad that it's needed, but it's so needed. So the question is the talk only about traffic stops? Can't it expand? Sad that it's needed, but it's so needed. No, Cindy, the talk is not just about traffic stops. I think that because of the way that the world is, and we're using media to show us the footage of what's happening at traffic stops, then people are using those incidences to say this is what you need to do when you are stopped by the cops. But those of us who are Black and who are dealing with our Blackness on a regular basis in terms of having these real conversations, especially with our youth, the conversation isn't just about traffic stops. It's about being Black, period. So when I had to sit my 19-year-old godson down, it's about him wanting to be talking about pledging a fraternity. We talked about him being in a relationship. He was in a relationship at one time with white women. So we have to talk about that. We've got to talk about his academic journey, like how he's going to matriculate through college. We've got to talk about that. We've got to have the talk about what happens to him after he graduates with a degree, as opposed to what happens to his white peers when they graduate with the same degree. So the talk is about being Black, and it expands every aspect of our Blackness. I think we only think about it in terms of traffic stops because that's what we see in the media, and we're responding to that.
And so, when what you were saying, you have to expand it, you have to broaden it out, but you have to broaden it out even farther than that. When a Darian asked, why did he shoot me? Why did he shoot me when I'm complying? I'm doing what he asked me to do, and I get shot. But that's Black people in general. We ask all the time, not just in a Darian's case, but in other cases. Why did you put your foot on my neck? Why did you kill me? Why did you deny me this job? Why did you do these things to me? And I'm complying. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do as a human being. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do as a citizen of this world. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm working. I'm taking care of my family. And yet I'm doing these things, and you're still murdering me. You're still killing me. I'm complying based on what I'm supposed to live as a human, but I'm still being treated in a way like I'm non-compliant.
Well, I don't think you're being treated. I don't think we're being treated in a way that we are non-compliant. Let me say this. Hello says, just because I am pro-black does not mean that I am anti-white. I think a lot of people miss that. I think a lot of people miss that. Just because I am pro-black does not mean that I am anti-white. And then Cindy says, I need to educate myself on the messages for youth in relations with law enforcement. Oh, sure. And of course, we can have that conversation. We can help you. I can help you with some resources. We can jump on a Zoom and begin a conversation. I am more than happy to have that conversation because we all need to be educated on these issues, not just white folks, because many of us as Black folks are complicit in this system that continues to kill us. But I don't think it's because we are not compliant, because we could say his name, Philando Castile. He was compliant and got shot in front of his daughter. She was sitting in the back seat, and there wasn't even enough humanity with the cop to say, let me not shoot up in this car with this baby in the back seat. But it goes back to how Black people continue to be portrayed and the identification of Black people in these systems, in these characters that they make us out to be. And so when you think about just going back historically to how they characterize Black folks, we've been characterized as being Uncle Toms, as being coons, as being Jezebels, Sapphires, Mammies, Jim Crows, like all of these images that they have created for us as Black people, these caricatures of Black people. These are the images that people have in mind when they see us. So I don't see human, I don't see brilliance, I don't see divinity, I don't see the boldness of your Blackness. I don't see any of that. I see angry Black woman, or I see hypersexualized woman, or I see undisciplined child, or I see an opportunity to commodify. That's what I see. And so because of that, that's why I can treat you the way that I treat you, because I don't see you as human. That's the problem. How do you humanize Black folks in the face of the system of white inhumanity? That becomes the real question. And I don't think we figured out the answer.
I don't know if that. You're right. We haven't figured out the answer. And part of that is when you build a foundation of generations and generations and generations and hundreds of years of, as you say, portraying Black people in a certain way, characterize them in a certain way, where either they can't do anything, we have to take care of them, we have to teach them, we have to show them, because if we don't, and that was one of the ideas when slavery ended, or one of the fears about slavery ending, was that you're going to have these Black people running wild. They're going to just be crazy. And we have to keep them under control because they're uneducated, they're inhuman, they're beasts. They're beasts, and we have to treat them as beasts. We have to treat them as animals, and that keeps playing out. And even to this day, that system that has been created, that has indoctrinated white and Black and this world, is still being played out, and that's why it's white inhumanity feel justified in how they're treating Black people.
Yeah, and so one of the answers I think that Black people came up with, I don't want to say it like that. I think one of the answers that Black people turn to in order for us to be humanized in the eyes of white inhumanity, we decided, if we are Christian, because that was part of the Christian doctrine back during the time when we were enslaved, it was that we needed to be saved because our salvation would then humanize us. Our salvation would then put us on equal footing with white folks, because the same Lord is Lord of both of us. And so now you are different if you are Christian than you would be if you were non-Christian. And so that's part of the reason why it's important for us to come to know Christ. That was part of the baptismal process. And so many of us then began to rely on religion to then to change white people's perception of us. Because if God has now sanctified and saved and delivered me the same way that he did at you, then now you can see me as brother. You can see me as sister. We've got so many hymns that talk about the unity of being in Christ. And so many of us are depending on the system of religion to equalize us as humans in the eyes of white folks. And that is not working. That is not what is happening. We keep waiting on it. So that's one of the reasons why I was sitting here and Adarian, now remember, Adarian is 11. So for him to be singing these gospel songs at 11 years old while he's bleeding out, we're teaching him this. You need to know God. You need to know Christ. At 11 years old, we are indoctrinating him with this religion that we believe is going to save his soul. Save him for what? Save him from what? It ain't saving you from the system of white inhumanity. What is it saving you from? And so I'm not saying you don't need a God. I'm not saying that at all. But we are dependent and we waiting on this God to fix it for us. We waiting on Jesus to save it for us. We waiting on Jesus to change the hearts and minds of white folks. And while we're waiting, we're doing nothing and the system hasn't changed. So how can you keep your Jesus? Because I'm not coming for your Jesus. But how can you keep your Jesus and then do something? How can you activate yourself? How can you get to work? How can you do what the Bible says and put your hands on the plow so that we are affecting change, so that we are changing the system so that it works in our favor? I don't think sitting back and praying about it is going to help.
No, what it takes is action. It has to be having conversations, having taken action and standing and being truthful about a lot of this. And just because you say you are a Christian, just because you say you love me, just because you say that you want the best of me, I can't hear what you're saying by watching what you do.
Thank you all so much for joining us for Community Voices. We have been live right here at KABF 88.3 FM, where we will be again on Thursday.
Yes.
Look, I don't know your schedule. Thursday. So Cindy says, hands on the plow. Yes, hands on the plow. That is absolutely a scripture that we can talk about again. But we are glad that you are here. Your girl Lola is in the house. You got 2 hours of jazz coming up. Don't touch that dial. You want to hear what she is going to play because it is going to feed your soul. I am already convinced of that. So stay right here. Stay tuned where we are the voice of the people. See you soon.